On today's episode of Globetrotting with Trey, I'm at the famous Cotton Bowl here in Dallas, Texas. How cool is this? Learn about Elvis's October 1956 concert. What happened inside this stadium? Stay tuned.
The Cotton Bowl appearance at the State Fair of Texas, October 11th, 1956, was the largest venue that Elvis ever played for years and years and years and held the record. There were 26,500 screaming teenagers trapped behind a 10-foot wide sidewalk fence, and Elvis was out in the middle of the Cotton Bowl on the stage. And the newspapers compared it to the seismic shaking of an earthquake. It was pandemonium and screaming to the top of their lungs. Now, the big reward I got for bringing Elvis to the Cotton Bowl and getting the club to write in is that I was the only teenager allowed out on the Cotton Bowl field when Elvis was singing like that. And I was like right up there by the stage with the rest of the photographers and, the press people. And he jumped off the stage and pointed directly at me and was singing Hound Dog. You can't believe how excited I was. I thought I was going to sing. I said, "Oh, Elvis, you wore the green coat that I loved." This is the line I'll never forget. He says, "You'll probably have it before the night's over."
That was Kay Wheeler, the first ever fan club president and a really good friend to Elvis, sharing her experience inside the Cotton Bowl. The Cotton Bowl was built in 1930, but Elvis played there in October of '56. So let's go inside and explore. Welcome to the Cotton Bowl. Elvis played here October 1956. How cool is this, guys? So what I learned is he drove the car through that tunnel to the stage. And before he got to the tunnel, or came out of the tunnel, he was given a subpoena by the owner of the Waco of the Heart of Texas Coliseum, because Elvis had promised to come back and play, and Elvis never did, because Elvis started making lots of money after that deal was made. So he was given a subpoena before he came out on the field, and he was not too happy about that. I'll tell a little bit more about that story. But I told you, this is the Cotton Bowl. Epic place. Wow. I have no idea where the stage was. I assume it could have been in the middle, just by the layout of it. But this is cool. It's another concert. Look at the press box up there. Yeah, but I assume the stage. It's just right here. Once upon a time. Somewhere in the middle. right there. Can you see Elvis out there shaking, rattling, and rolling? Can you see all the football played in here? Can you feel that history? Can you see that Cadillac coming out of that tunnel? I'm speechless right now, guys. I don't even know what to say. The field goal looks like it's about to fall, though. I'm gonna go back home and really do all the research I am so y'all can learn everything you need to on this video about how iconic this place is. Thank you for exploring with me on Globetrotting with Trey. No doubt about it, Elvis rode around to the stage, probably right here in the middle, once upon a time.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, do something for me. Share this with 3 of your Elvis friends. 3 means Trey. So for me, if you like my content right now, share it with 3 Elvis friends that you think would enjoy this history. Now let's get back to the show.
So guys, this is the back entrance. Elvis drove down that tunnel in October of '56 to get out on the football field. No doubt. That's what the story is.
The 71st annual edition of the State Fair of Texas began its 16-day run on Saturday, October 6, 1956. In addition to Presley, other big-name entertainment talents scheduled to appear include Louis Armstrong, comedian Victor Borge, and young pianist Roger Williams. Presley, however, was the clear leader of the entertainment parade. He was booked into a massive Cotton Bowl for Thursday evening, October 11th, normally a low-attendance night for the fair. Elvis, though, was expected to change that, with some officials envisioning over 75,000 of his rock and roll fans filling the football stadium. Radio station KLIF, sponsor of Presley's Dallas show, plugged his appearance daily. Local record shops sold advance tickets for a meager $1.25 for all seats. Billboard reported that advance sales were enormous. The biggest and most obnoxious Elvis Presley fan club in the world is situated here in Dallas. It has 7,000 members and a pushy president. That pushy president, guys, was Kay Wheeler, this girl right here that I'm showing you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Kay here a little later because she's important in this Cotton Bowl story. It also has screaming, squealing loyalty. That was the judgment of William Stife, writer for the San Francisco News, who had come to Dallas that week to find out what makes Elvis tick. At the Cotton Bowl, teenagers intend on getting the best seats starting lining up in the 90-degree mid-afternoon heat for the Presley 8 o'clock show that evening. Many wore rock and roll hats, colorful quick buck versions of the old pork pies, and lots of them wore pink shirts, heavy black skirts, pants with the name Elvis Presley stitched thereon. The swelling crowd, including a smattering of teenage boys and older women as well. 2 hours before the showtime, up to 5,000 were tightly packed up against the Cotton Bowl's front gate. The squealing of young girls alternated with chants of "We want Elvis." It sounded like the Kansas City stockyards. Attendants slowly opened the gates and allowed the crowd to enter. A couple of men jumped on boxes and pleaded with the girls at the rear to stop pushing. That didn't do much good. One little girl, about 13, came through the gates running and sweating heavily. She stopped a moment, panted, "I don't know if it's worth it." and started running again. After the first rush was over, Colonel Parker, who was standing outside the gate, exhaled, "Whew, they'll all be all right now." Then he tucked back inside to attend the business of selling Elvis photos for 50 cents and programs for $1. Elvis came in, looked sort of sleepy, reported Frank Tolbert of the Dallas Morning News. He said he had gotten but 4 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. The fan club girls seemed to be playing a game with Elvis during the press conference. They tried to look Elvis squarely in the eye, and one pretty blonde reeled back after gazing into Presley's optics and screamed, "Did you see that look he gave me? Did you see it?" Reporters who were mixed among the fan club members fired a few questions on his humbleness. Elvis said, "I got sense enough to know where fame and money come from. I know that the Lord can give and the Lord can take away. I might be herding sheep next year." The crowds, I'm nervous in crowds. Sometimes I wish I could get away. Then I get lonesome for the powder of little feet on his sideburns. I don't like them much, but they've been with me a long time. I just got used to them. After his press finished, Kay Wheeler, the president of the Dallas fan club, who was 17 years old, stepped forward and set off a flashbulb in Presley's face. Kay said that Elvis looked at her and said, "Don't burn the sideburns." She then presented him with an oil portrait and some cufflinks. "He's different," she later told reporter Robert Ford of the Presley Allure. "The younger generation needed something different. We needed him." These are the only color photos of Elvis before the press conference that Kay captured. Elvis wearing that green jacket for his performance at the Cotton Bowl. Kay said, "I was smart enough to know that I was just going to have to stand back and watch him take off like a rocket in 1956. I knew in half a second that he was not the marrying kind, but I was still in love with him like every other normal teenager." Now check out this cool photo of Elvis on stage at the Cotton Bowl. And there is Kay, the only girl that was allowed on the football field that night. Kay Wheeler, right there in that photo. It happened, no doubt about it. Just prior to going on stage at the Cotton Bowl, Elvis was served with a court summons. Well, sort of served. The origin of the summons can be traced back to January 20th of that year when Elvis appeared at the Northside Coliseum in the neighboring Fort Worth. Before leaving town that day, Colonel Parker negotiated a contract with the promoter for Elvis to make 4 future appearances in the city at $500 per show. Elvis returned to Fort Worth for a performance on April 20th, 56, when his exploding popularity pushed the going price for his services from $500 to around $10,000. Colonel Parker understandably had a memory lapse concerning Presley's commitment for 3 more shows in Fort Worth. Fort Worth promoter didn't forget, and when it became apparent that Elvis was not coming back on his own, the promoter decided to force the issue. He filed a $38,000 breach of contract suit against Presley and Colonel Parker. The duty of serving Elvis with the summons went to Dallas County Deputy Sheriff W.R. Pike. This guy right here. He knew finding Presley in his city that day was not going to be easy. After all, thousands of others, mostly teenage girls, were also looking for him, and Elvis was staying out of sight. However, Pike knew there was one place his victim had to appear, and that was on the stage at the Cotton Bowl the evening of the 11th. So the process server positioned himself at the end of the tunnel leading into the floor of the stadium, and waited for Elvis to pass by on his way to the stage. Then things got complicated. According to Tolbert, the process serving contained more action than some football games between conservative teams using the split T. Pike thought he had his man when a car came up the tunnel with whining police escort and a young man with sideburns like those of the Civil War General Ambrose Burnside got out of the car. This young man also wore a bright green jacket which fitted the sheriff's description of Elvis. It turned out, though, that the man was Elvis's cousin Gene Smith, who was playing his regular role as Elvis's decoy. When Deputy Pike tried to hand him the summons, Smith refused to accept it and began running back up the tunnel, along with Presley's friend, actor Nick Adams. Determined to do his duty, Pike sprinted up the tunnel in pursuit. After catching up to the 2 men, the deputy tried to hand the papers to Nick Adams, whom, according to Tolbert, he may have thought was Elvis in disguise. Adams, of course, also refused to accept the summons. About then, the real Presley, also in a neon bright green jacket, showed up at the tunnel gate in another car. The deputy sheriff raced back up and tried to hand Elvis the papers. The summons wound up being dropped on the ground. Earlier, Deputy Pike confronted Colonel Parker at Cotton Bowl Gate number 2 and served him with the summons. Elvis later told Nick Adams, "I turned my ring around. I thought that guy was going to jump you, man." As it was, the stadium darkened, and Elvis, visibly shaken by the events of the tunnel, jumped back into his convertible and started to drive down the ramp into the bowl. A spotlight located high atop the press box cut a path through the cool Texas night, picked out the sideburn crooner in the back seat of the convertible. A roar snowballed out of the grandstand as the car circled the gridiron, then grew to ear-splitting crescendo. Flashbulbs created a wave of light of Elvis as Elvis passed each section of the grandstand. The car pulled up in front of the stage, straddling the 50-yard line, and Elvis jumped out and ran up the steps. Elvis took the microphone and started to say something, but you could never figure out what he was fixing to say because the girls in the stands kept hollering. Presley was dressed in a green tweed jacket, a blue tie, a white silk shirt with pleats, charcoal trousers, a black and gold cummerbund, a white buckskin high-top shoes with red heels. Presley started off with Heartbreak Hotel, doing a staggering shuffle-footed dance with a microphone. Sometimes he went into a really classical Indian war dance. Other times it was sheer voodoo acrobatics as he threw his famous pelvis from the 50-yard line to the 35. With each whisper from the rock and roll voice, the shouts of the multitude drowned out the song. The sound of 26,500 voices vibrated around the bowl when Elvis went into the peculiar knee-twitching, hip-swinging dance to accent pauses in his music. Finally, after a half an hour and 7 or 8 of his standard numbers, he wove into Hound Dog and bounced off the stage carrying the mic with him. There, on the 50-yard line, he sank on his knees, rose, wove, bumped, ground, and sank again time after time. The girls screamed themselves silly. It may have been obscene, but if so, it was obscene in the same way the climax of a revival meeting is obscene. Elvis, working himself over the grass alongside the stage, sank almost out of sight and suddenly slipped into the waiting Cadillac. The motorcycle cop roared out in front, the car drove off, and quickly the bow's overhead lights were turned on. Shrieks became disappointment. So that is the story of Elvis Presley's famous, iconic Cotton Bowl. Elvis Presley Show, October 11th, 1956, Dallas, Texas. Around 30,000 people was at the show that night. Elvis made around $18,000 for his performance. And also, guys, you may be wondering about that summons about the court. Well, it was dropped the very next day. It said that the promoter had called off his legal action after he came with an agreement with Elvis and Colonel Parker. Elvis agreed to fulfill the conditions of the original contract by appearing in Fort Worth twice before December the 15th. However, Colonel Parker later must have bought out of Elvis's contract, as Elvis did not return to Fort Worth at any time during the remainder of 1956. In fact, he did not play Fort Worth, Texas again until 16 years later in June 1972. The Cotton Bowl, of course, is a very famous stadium. On New Year's Day, 1937, the first ever Cotton Bowl college football bowl game started, and they were played there until 2009, 73 Cotton Bowl games. Also, it's really cool, the Dallas Cowboys started here at the Cotton Bowl in 1960 and played here until 1971, showing you a photo during the Green Bay Packer Dallas Cowboy NFL championship game. Check out this photo that I found from under the tunnel in 1955. This is where Elvis would have ridden in that Cadillac from, and this is what it looked like during the time that Elvis was here once upon a time. So much history here in the Cotton Bowl. Here's a photo of John Wayne inside the stadium. Billy Graham, Joe Montana throwing a touchdown in 1980. The Cotton Bowl every year hosts the Red River Rivalry against the Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Longhorns, so you still can enjoy a football game at the Cotton Bowl. Check it out if you're in Dallas, Texas.
So you can come to the Midway and you come and visit the Cotton Bowl and ride you some rides. You know Elvis would do it.
That's the history of the Elvis Cotton Bowl Show. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't double dribble. Subscribe to Globetrotting with Trey to stay updated with more Elvis episodes each Tuesday. Like I said, share with 3 fans right now that you would think they would like this Elvis history. I'll see you down the road. Thanks for watching. Elvis was here once upon a time.